16th of December 22, it's Friday, and I'm talking about Ukraine, because I haven't talked about it for a while, and I'm still 100% support Ukraine. Good luck to them. I still watch Danis Danivov, I think his name is, on YouTube. I also still tend to watch Operator Starsky on YouTube, who does great live things. He couldn't go on the last 2 or 3 weeks because of power cuts or whatever. Yeah, I'm still 100% in support of Ukraine. I also watch that lady who's in the UK. I can't remember her name, but she poses great questions and gives forthright answers, and I tend to agree with her. So yeah, I really hope that they can get through. It's just terrible what's happened to them, and it's a bit like, I do see it as a sort of buffer between Russia and the West. So Ukraine are really doing it so that we don't have to, or whatever. Because if they had overtaken Ukraine, that would be them right on the border with Poland, Russia, and that. And it is a shame. It's hard to understand the Russian mentality, and that's why people talk about racism or whatever to do with immigration. But the thought of Russians coming this makes me a bit sad, because they seem to have a mindset. I don't know what it is. You can't just blame Putin. Sometimes you can, because if you look at East Germany and that, that was Germans, or even Germany for the war. To think that Germany and Japan were our enemies just 80 years ago, and they were trying to destroy us, and now they're probably the most trustworthy allies I can think of, especially Japan. Even Japan, maybe even more so. And again, that shows you racism's not a word you can use, because Japan is not like the rest of the West. And then there's South Korea, another great ally, and Taiwan even, which is probably Chinese mostly. But yeah, just looking at Ukraine, I really hope that the war can come to an end soon. And it's tragic. It's like Putin just doesn't care about his soldiers at all, and in a way I feel sorry for any Russian soldier that doesn't want to be there or whatever, or, I just don't know how they can't revolt against Putin and that. Just but at the same time, I don't think you can just blame Putin. I think it's a whole down the thing where there's and people that seem to support that mindset that Russia are superior, especially for people like Ukraine and that. I'm not sure about the history about Ukraine, but I think, first of all, Russia comes from the word Rus, the Rus people, and I think that meant the Ruhr people, and I think they were sort of, they would turn up in their boats or whatever. But first of all, I think it was based around Kiev, really. The Russian people, or whatever you want to call them, the Rus people. I'm talking about 1,000 years ago or whatever. We're not even sure where they came from. Well, I'm not. Maybe even Vikings or something, I don't know. Bit of a mix. But Kiev might have been the first centre, and at that time Moscow was nothing. It wasn't even there. But eventually Moscow became part of the Rus people or whatever, and it was just that little square, say, St. Petersburg as well, maybe, probably. And then finally Moscow became the sort of the centre of it. And when you think of the whole of the rest of the Soviet Union away to the east and all that, that's all different groupings of people. A lot of them I don't think are even white, or so, I have seen some sort of NATO ex people suggest that Russia will just collapse, eventually, and it might be like 50 states. But I suppose the reason that they stay with Russia is because they'd be even poorer without Russia or something. I don't know, but that's what that guy said, and he sounded convincing. So it is ironic that, but then Moscow became thing, and then Ukraine sort of came up with an identity about 200 years ago or something. But they feel different, and that's it, Same as we feel different from the French or the Irish or German. I mean, new groupings can happen all the time. I mean, there's meant to be Brits and Americans are the way the countries are going. We're supposed to all identify as one. Whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. But yeah, so the Ukrainians, and it does feel that the Ukrainians do feel part of the West Europe family to me. Sort of attitude and that, from what I've seen. So I really don't mind. Well, I mean, I don't mind Ukrainians coming to Britain and that as refugees, because that's the whole idea of refugees, that you help your neighbours. And I would regard them as neighbours, even though it's right on the peripheral, I suppose. Because I think in Scotland, I don't know, we took in about 18,000 Ukrainians or something. There's even some of them living in a ship in Edinburgh on the harbour or whatever. Quite a luxury ship, I would imagine. But yeah, so I really hope the Ukraine, I mean, what they've done in the war is incredible. Their willpower and their determination, and I suppose because they've lived under Russians before, and they never want that to happen again. It's not that long ago, 30 years or something, that they lived under the Russians, and they know, so they can know in their memory how awful it is. So there's no way they want to give up that, because at the moment they're regarded as a West country. There's a bit of a fracture, because on the east of Ukraine, they've got the coal mines and all that, and that's how they sort of areas built up in the 18th century or whatever. But I think Stalin probably brought in a lot of Russian workers and that, or moved people a bit. So they're sort of areas the people seem to identify as Russian, but whether they do now, I don't know, I would imagine they want to be patriotic Russians who live in the West, We get a lot of that. I think that's the way most Russians would probably want to be if they had the chance. They would rather be tweeting patriotic stuff about Putin from, the UK or America or whatever. But so I don't know how they feel now. I mean, the west of Ukraine, like Lviv, and that's maybe more like West Europe. But I really hope it works out for them. They seem determined to not be under Russia again, and I don't blame them. And I can't believe the barbarity of Russia, although I can, in a way, because I don't know, they're really, I don't know, it's shocking, but it's not shocking. And even how they treat their own soldiers. I've been watching a lot in Warthog on YouTube. But yeah, so I'm still 100% in support of Ukraine, and I really hope that over the next year it can be resolved, they can have a total victory. And it would be nice if, the only reason we don't have peace in the world is because of countries like Russia and China. I mean, China is really going to be a real threat now, and it's just tragic that they don't need to. It's like they can't be equals. So it really is a tragedy, and there's probably a lot of other unstable countries around now as well, like Iran and even Saudi Arabia probably, and I don't know. So it is just weird. Why can't they just be equals and get on with each other like Japan and Germany and Britain do, and America. You know, we were at war 80 years ago. Okay then, so God bless you. Well, I don't believe in God, but good luck, the best of luck to Ukraine.